good day to you out there, and welcome to another interesting edition of your regular program, Business and Economy, designed to improve your knowledge on the development across the country in order to increase your horizon on the development and performance of the nation's economy. I am Ile Emeje. The new proposed minimum wage, which is a part of remuneration to pay wage earners for the work performed during a given period, remains a sensitive matter till tomorrow. The purpose of establishing a minimum wage is to protect workers against exploitation, reduce income inequality, alleviate poverty, and promote social and economic well-being of the people. In Nigeria, minimum wage is based on monthly income with an average period of 8 hours on a daily basis and 5 days in a week. It is expected to be reviewed every 5 years, with the last being in 2019 from 18,000 minimum wage to 30,000 naira minimum wage during the President Muhammadu Buhari's regime. Presently, workers across the country are optimistic that the Tripartite Committee on the National Minimum Wage, which was set up by the federal government of Nigeria on January 30th, 2024, to determine the new minimum wage, is expected to come up with a workable agreement that will be favorable to all parties. When I say parties, I mean the government, the labor, and also the private sector. On this interesting episode of the program, Head of Criminology and Security Studies Department of the National Open University of Nigeria, now Professor Akoji Ocheja, is joining us after the business news to discuss on the topic we caption the proposed new minimum wage in a volatile economy, the implications. Meanwhile, we also expect Dr. Akintunde Ogunsola to join us on Skype from the city after the business news. Stay with us. Speaking in an interview with newsmen at the sideline of the technical session, stakeholders and facilitators in savings group, particularly for women, affirmed that it is imperative for adequate growth while calling for government support.
There are local governments in this country right now that I speak to you that do not have one single bank. In my place where I come from, my local government headquarters do not have a single bank. And so how do you want the women there to go to the bank? They should travel. I'm from Ugolao, a place in local government area of Kogi State. So it means that they either transport to Ida or they transport to Ayimba, where the closest banks are. And so it's a problem. And so we are saying that it is not possible to support these local groups, these Ajors, these Adashis. How do we support them, to strengthen their capacity so that they can effectively mobilize their members, they can effectively save their monies, and also invest these monies to bring returns for them. And so the challenge would also be, how do we then link these people to conventional banking system? That's what the CBN needs to solve.
Including them, basically, if I were to use that word, into the financial sector. Of course, when you come to the issues of security transfers, there's so much you can do with cash, which is limited as well. So we're bringing these women on board to say it's not a difficult thing, it's not burdensome to open accounts. We have, of course, high interest earning accounts, and then we're here to support businesses. Anything they want as well, willing to work with them.
The villages there, out there with the people, without anyone knowing what is taking place. So in this process, a lot of abuse has gone on. Some people have taken advantage of others in this process. So this sort of workshop has helped us to understand that the government can pick interest to try and take care of these people who are engaging in that, especially the last mile persons who do not necessarily have been taken care of in the different governments.
On behalf of the various women group present, one of the participants commended the session while urging all women to be active in savings group.
The difference is, in the bank we keep it there for the meantime, but for asking matter we give ourselves loans to help our women upgrade their markets, to support their husbands and the children's school fees too. Our feeding also contributes.
The program had in attendance civil society group,
non-governmental organization from Nigeria and across the continent for better delivery and development. Ile Emeje, ASO Television News.
So glad to have you join us on this interesting edition of your regular program, Business and Economy. And we are going to take a look on a topic that concerns every one of us, especially if you are a civil servant or you are a worker, you are earning wages in one way or the other in Nigeria. And our guest is the Departmental Head, Criminology and Security Studies of the National Open University, NOUN, or NOUN, Abuja. Our guest is Professor Akuji Ocheja. Prof, you are welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
How do you feel as one of the labor members, as a worker? You are earning salary or wages in Nigeria. How do you feel at this point in time? And from their introduction, labor is entitled for a review of minimum wage every 5 years, as was agreed and signed by the former President Muhammadu Buhari in 2019, without any logical consideration. What should Nigerians expect from this Tripartite Committee?
Well, the issue of labor, minimum wage, and all of those is a very sensitive matter.
Yeah.
However, since it has become a legitimate right, it is expected that every 5 years there should be an upward review of wages in Nigeria. And that is what the Act says. The expectation of every worker, therefore, this time around is that since this is the year of review, it is expected that there will be a review that will be favorable in quote, and the word favorable is a relative term.
Yeah.
Because every group, the government on one side, the labor on the other side, will define the word favorable as it relates to
Their interest.
their own personal interest. What may be favorable to the government may not be favorable to the wage earners or labor, as the case may be. But generally, the word favorable, let us expect that there will be a midpoint or a point where the favor of the government and the favor of the labor will have a middle course where each group will go home smiling.
But how about the private sector? Because some persons have expressed concern that on the part of the private sector, what is favorable to the government and the labor, especially to the labor, may not be favorable to the private sector. How are we going to reconcile all of this, or what do we expect from the private sector in all of this matter?
Well, minimum wage is for all workers.
Yeah.
And it is set by the government, whether you are in the public sector or in the private sector. The snag there could be that the operators of the private sector may not find it easy to cope with if it is too high or it is short too high for their operation. And more importantly, remember the private sector is profit driven. So if it is too high, then they are likely not to either be able to comply with it or think about reduction in their staff strength or increase the prices of their goods in order to meet up with the payment of the wages, the new minimum wage, and still maintain the profit that they are actually out to make.
Amid the demand for wage increase by the Nigerian labor sector, the Nigerian labor, there are concerns by experts and some international partners that increase in wage rates for now might worsen the already turbulent economy if the implications are not properly handled or managed. How do you agree to this?
Well, it's a sided sword. At the microeconomic level, it is a direct positive impact on the part of workers. So it is for the good of the workers. And on the other hand, it is an indirect negative impact given the size of government. In the volatile economy, you recall that as Nigeria is today, the prices of goods and services have all gone up, from medical care to transportation to rent to school fees and all of those. There is none that is not on the rise. And we are not talking of 5% increment, 10% increment. Some have even doubled, 100% and even 200, 300, 400% as the case may be. And so it is like the issue of wage rise at present is likened to maybe a child and his parents, where the child will be told that if you have too much money at your disposal, you are likely to get spoiled. And the child, on the other hand, will say that, let me have the money first, then before we talk about the impact.
What will happen?
What is paramount to every worker at this stage is survival.
Okay.
Workers are not considering the impact of the wage increase on the economy or whatever. After all, there are some other individuals whose wages have been so high and there was no consideration for its impact on the volatile economy as the case may be. So many people are taking home millions as their allowances, and workers are asking for a pay rise. Why should it be workers' own that will affect the volatile economy and not the millions that are being taken home as allowances in different quarters at one time or the other?
All right. Okay. Okay, we will try to link up with Mr. Akintunde Ogunsola. Mr. Ogunsola, good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you doing, Madam Queen?
I am doing well. And you?
I'm doing fine too.
You are welcome to the program.
All right, thank you. It's my pleasure to be with you again.
All right. Mr. Akintunde, Labour is entitled for a review of minimum wage every 5 years, as agreed and signed by former President Muhammadu Buhari in 2019 without any logical consideration. So for you, what should we expect as a Nigerian Labour from the Tripartite Committee ahead of the Labour's Day?
Yes, it's agreement that Labour had with the federal government in the past that every 5 years minimum wage should be reviewed. Remember that this Tripartite Committee, a committee that comprises of the federal, the state, local government, and also the Nigerian Labour Congress, so that they agree on a unified minimum wage that is payable by all levels of government. Now, for this case, the reason for Labour asking for an increment now is the result of the removal of subsidy, which the President talked about in Saudi Arabia. Yeah. Also, it's also as a result of the devaluation of the naira, in the name of trying to make dollar to float and also fight for itself instead of pegging it. Now, these two economic decisions has brought about the inflation that Nigeria is currently experiencing, and then the cost of going to work for a worker in Nigeria, maintaining their work. As God recalled that some state governments gave free work day. Some state governments said workers should work for 4 days as a result of just like kind of palliative for the workers, and that has shown that yes, even the governments at the state level are interested in increasing the wage of the workers. Now, at the Tripartite Committee, we expect Labour to negotiate very well and also come up with an increment. Though we don't know the level at which the increment will come, but definitely an increment is very, very important at this time.
All right, as an economist, you are aware that in a sane and rational economy, increase in wage rate should be proportionate to increase in productivity. In the Nigerian situation, can we truly say that there is an increase in labor productivity that will lead to an increase in wage rate?
It's not about labor productivity here. Yes, labor is actually doing the workers are doing their work. We see doctors working, we see teachers, we see aviation workers and all other sub-unions that we have in Nigeria. They are actually working. I know that some of them are even essential workers that can't even do without them, especially those in the health sector, those in the journalism, just like you, and also all other sub-units of labor. They are actually working and they are actually productive. Look at Nupeng, look at Pengasin, they are actually working. But looking at the condition of living, the cost of living in the country, it has gone so high. They go to the same market with other Nigerians. A cost of the price of a bag of rice is not even enough to the salary of a worker cannot even buy a bag of rice for 1 month. So this is very, very poor. We need to ensure that workers' pay are actually commensurate with the level of productivity, so that we can also fight corruption, because we've had several fora where workers are saying, if they are not paying us well, how will you say that we should not be corrupt? They are going to be tempted. They can easily fall for this temptation as a result of the poor wage. So if they can increase this wage, it will help us to reduce corruption. It will help us to also make workers to be comfortable. They will also be able to do their work effectively. And then they can also meet up with the demand of the cost of this inflation that we're experiencing currently in our economy. These are the importance of it.
So what will you say to an information that, a report that came up some time ago, that after the COVID-19 pandemic situation across the globe, including Nigeria, that affected our economy in Nigeria, a lot of workers are not going to work as it is expected of them, that many of them are running shift. For example, some will come on Monday and others will come on Wednesday, and while the rest will come to work on Friday. Meanwhile, they don't fulfill the 8-hourly work and the 5 days work per week. What do you expect, and how do you explain that if you combine it, you bring it together with the level of productivity?
Now, what has led to that is because of the inflation in the economy. I also have some offices, example, that they don't run shift because they give them staff bus. There is a staff bus that picks staff from their bus stop in their homes to their office. So such offices that I know, I can mention the name, but I wouldn't, they don't give them shifts. They don't have any reason for any shifts because they're already enjoying a palliative of staff bus. So it is only those that don't have the palliative of staff bus that will pick them from their house and then drop them in the office, and then when they are going back, the same thing. Ordinarily, we're supposed to do our hours Monday to Friday. We are not even supposed to be talking of shift here. The reason why the shift came is because of the inflation, because of the complaints that labor has pushed up. And the government is not ready to increase the wage. So now say, okay, let's reduce the number of days and the number of hours that you come to work. That will also reduce productivity. We don't need to go that route. The route we need to go to is pay them very well so that they can commit all the necessary hours. Remember that even the organized private sector, they are also involved in this. Some of the organized private sector are not getting these shifts that you are talking about. So let them just increase the minimum so that everybody will do their work within the speculated time frame that is supposed to be at their work. That is just the normal thing.
All right, I'll get back to you in a moment. Okay, Prof, you've heard him. And let me give you this question. As we speak, Labour is proposing a new minimum wage of 615,000 naira per month. How logical, how sincere, and how can the economy accommodate this, given the 615,000 naira, maybe for level 1 or level 3, then you go up from there. How sustainable do you think this can be for the economy?
Well, it depends on the sincerity of the government. If government wants to do that, they can. Remember, the workforce that we are talking about is like 30%. The remaining 70% of the workforce of this country, they are in the informal sector, self-employed, mechanics, vulcanizers, commercial drivers, and all that. So if 30% are going to be, or is what is going to be the burden of the government, then it is feasible. Although again, when you look at it from the other angle, the question will be, what goes to those that are in the informal sector? If you are paying 600 to somebody in level 1 in the government workforce, then those that have even gone to school and are not employed, what social policy or welfare intervention package are you going to have for them? Are you going to be paying them unemployment allowance and all of that? So on that note, it will be difficult for government to meet that 615,000 as the case may be. But like I would say, in the words of Oliver Twist, it is always good to ask for more. Then it is now on the part of the government to say that the 615 is too much. But at least given that kind of benchmark, the government will not go too low at the end of the day.
All right. Let's get back to Dr. Akintunde Ogunsola. Doctor, are you there?
I'm here.
All right. Yesterday I was somewhere and an argument came up where somebody was on one party. They were saying that they want government to pay 615,000 naira as the minimum wage for Nigeria. And someone on the other side said, you think that the government will be able to accommodate this for all workers in Nigeria? Then the other person now replied and said that government should be able to do so. The next person now said, now government increased the pump price of petroleum from 192 naira per litre to about 680 to 730 naira, as the case may be in some places. So, and we are buying it. So why shouldn't government be able to pay about 615,000 naira as minimum wage for workers in Nigeria? You are an economist. Do you think that this will be feasible for the government and the private sector? Let's have your idea.
All right. I think Labour is just fixing that amount for negotiation purposes. In fact, it's so glaring that it's not feasible. So it's just for negotiation, so that by the time they say, we can't pay 600, you pay 400. It's just purely for negotiation. What I see that is feasible is possibly maybe government can increase to maybe 120,000 naira as minimum wage, because government initially said they will pay 60 and Labour said no. But looking at something that is feasible, something that will not affect our economy. Remember, we are currently trying to fight the dreaded inflation that is over 14 to 16 months high in the country of Nigeria. So as a result of that, we don't want too much money in circulation chasing few goods. We also need to control the level of money in circulation. So I think what will be feasible is maybe around 120 to 150. I think that's what will be feasible. The 600, I don't think that's feasible.
According to them, they said the percentage change in the fuel pump price, which has led to general high prices of goods and services, should also be considered in the wage rate. How do you react to this?
Yes, I have also considered that in giving you an idea of 120 to 150. The minimum wage before now, as we speak, is 30,000 naira. So the fuel price increased by, I think, by 300%. So 300% of 30,000 will give you maybe about 90,000, say, or 100 or 120. So the commensurate percentage increase should be around 120 to 150, not 600.
Union and their members, will you like to put it at 90,000 naira as the minimum wage, or we should go with a 615,000 naira as minimum wage?
615,000 naira is not feasible. Labour only pegged that figure for negotiation reasons. By the time negotiations are going on, we will now come to, a meeting point. And I'm now suggesting that I think the meeting point should be around 120 to 150,000 naira. That would be okay. That would be good, because we are also considering the state governments. Remember that we have passed, or we are just coming out from the era where recurrent expenditure, is taking over 60 to 70% of our budget. This wage increase is also part of the recurrent expenditure. So the government is also looking at all other economic indices side by side this decision. How will this affect inflation? How would this affect government spending? How would this affect the volume of money in circulation chasing few goods? At the same time, we want to improve the standard of living of our workers. So there must be a strike of balance between all this. And I think where the balance that will be feasible is around 120 to 150. The 615 or whatever, 650 is just for negotiation. It's not feasible.
Right back. Stay with us.
We are a nation blessed with people of diverse cultures, religions, languages, and opinions. It is ironic that we are now being ripped apart by our greatest strength, our diversity. We have allowed intolerance, insensitivity, bigotry, and nepotism to blind our vision of the greatness we can achieve working together as one. We may not have the same culture, nor religion, nor language, but we all belong to the same nation by the divine will of God. We did not choose to be Nigerians. Nigeria chose us. This nation is our divine heritage, and if we open our eyes, we would realize that what divides us pales in comparison to what unites us. And by the comparison and conciliation of our differences, we will grow until our differences disappear. Our unity cannot be willed by mere declarations, nor do we get unity by ignoring the questions that beg for answers. We must celebrate our diversity and debate our differences without fracturing our unity. Our strength is not in our numbers, but in our unity, because even the weak become strong when united. Nigeria unite.
This message is brought to you by Abuja Broadcasting Corporation, owners and operators of ASO Radio 93.5 FM Abuja, ASO Television DSTV Channel 392, Star Times Terrestrial Channel 127, Free TV Channel 507, People's TV Channel 285, and UHF Channel 38.
In case you just tune in, you are on to your regular program, Business and Economy, where we discuss anything business, activities, the economy, the reforms, the economic reforms, and the resultant impact. And today, we are looking at the new minimum wage proposal by the Labour and its implication on the Nigerian economy. I have two guests, and I have with me in the studio Professor Akoji Ocheja, who is the head of Department Criminology and Security Studies of the National Open University of Nigeria. And we also have another guest that is joining us on Skype. He is Dr. Akintunde Ogunsola, an economic expert. Prof, before we went on the break, we were trying to look at whether the 615,000 naira proposed by the Labour is feasible and the impact this will have on the economy. But again, there's something that always runs through my mind. Each time there's a demand for an increment in labor, and that has to do with those in the informal sector, which you also highlighted earlier. Now, the labor are demanding for 615,000 naira as minimum wage. What becomes of those in the informal sector? What do you think can be done to also carry them along?
Well, as a starting point, majority of the people in the informal sector may have desired to work in the public sector or in the private sector, as the case may be. Because working with the government is a riskless kind of job, where the chances of maybe losing your job and all of those are very, very minimal, you know, and you are guaranteed of your pay at the end of the month, all things being equal. So for those that are in the informal sector, a lot of them are qualified, but cannot be gainfully employed either by the government or by the organized private sector, and as such, they decided to take to whatever they could do legally for survival. So the government and the organized private sector can create an enabling environment that many of them could be employed, either in the public sector or in the private sector. Then, if that is on one hand, then secondly, the informal sector could be encouraged, either by provision of loans to boost the activities that they are doing to survive. For example, maybe a vulcanizer by the roadside. When you check around, you discover that most of them don't have digitalized machines
or equipment
to even gauge the tires that they have inflated to know the exact quantity of air that is in the tire. Rather, most of them are using the old manual gauge where you press down and check and all of that, which does not give you an exact and all of that. Then there are other equipment that could ease their work and put them on a better pedestal in the course of their work. The same thing applies to other people in the informal sector. When you visit their places of work, you discover that they lack almost everything. So they are just doing what they are doing to survive at the minimal level. So government can give them loans, soft loans with a single-digit kind of interest, or possibly interest-free if it is possible, to see how they could be encouraged. Then beyond that too, our educational system should be tilted towards skills acquisition. So that beyond the public and organized private sector employment, even when you are going to find yourself in the informal sector, you would have been equipped with one skill or the other. Not after graduation and job is not forthcoming, before you now start thinking of which skills to go and acquire or to go and learn, and for how much time and how much money and which equipment to buy and whether the money will be available and all of that. So our education should be, the system should be tilted towards functional education, that people can acquire skills while still in school, so that upon graduation they can think outside the box of getting a government job or getting a job in an organized private sector.
All right. Dr. Akintunde, I want to give you this question. Recall that over the years, the federal government has introduced what we call the social intervention programs. And now that the labor is demanding about 615,000 naira as minimum wage, what do you think should be done in the area of the social intervention program for those in the informal sector?
All right. I think this current administration has a very good plan for social intervention program for the poor and the needy, the widows and all that. But the federal government discovered that trying to structure out a very good social investment program is also breeding an avenue for corruption. Thirdly, the federal government needs to go to a round table and sit and have a discussion with stakeholders on what is sustainable, what kind of social investment program is sustainable, not just this sharing of cash to people or sharing rights that almost all the state governments are doing now, and sharing palliative of rights. Within 1 month, they will finish eating that rice. And then after finish eating the rice, what is next? They are hungry again. Will they continue to give them rice? So government needs to structure something that is sustainable, something that will affect the grassroots. Not that when the government releases fund, halfway is just half of the money that gets down, or even sometimes nothing even goes down to the grassroots. So a proper social intervention program should be designed away from the formal ones. They need to also look at the failures of the fund, the market money, the anchor borrower scheme that the past administration did. Is this sustainable? We also recall that the federal government, this current administration, suspended the Empower program because they also discovered some level of corruption that's been perpetrated through that means. So social intervention is important, it is necessary, but it needs to be done structurally. Let us have data of people that are benefiting from this investment program. Let us have information about to what extent, how many months government is going to be supporting them. You know, look at the one that they did now, a very small palliative that was given to the workers, 30,000 naira wage award every month for about 4 to 6 months or so. That one was easily traceable. At least we saw that many people got it, if not all. So government need to sit down because that ministry now, the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, who's supposed to be the chair, representative of government to organize this, has been suspended. And so government needs to set up a very high-powered committee to look at how our social investment program can be rejuvenated in order to accommodate everybody in the society, all the vulnerable, all the poor people in the society, and how it can be sustainable and effective such that it will not affect our economy and people will actually feel the impact of these intervention programs.
Your advice to the government, the labor and the private sector as we round off?
Yeah, I'm going to advise labor to consider shifting from 615. They should negotiate what is feasible so that federal government will not see them as, these people are not serious. They think we are packing money from somewhere. So my advice to labor is labor should negotiate something feasible. I know that federal government want to be dragging them to want to pay 50,000, want to pay 40,000. No, they should just come up with something feasible and stand by it. That it is this amount that we have seen that is feasible or nothing. Not that you carry one big figure and then you are trying to negotiate as if you are buying tomato. So that's just my advice to labor. And my advice to the federal government is that federal government should also consider improving the standard of living of workers. Workers are the ones that are working for this revenue that government is actually generating. When workers are not well paid, definitely there will be the revenue that we are crying shortage is as a result of sabotage, which the federal government knows. And this is coming as a result of not paying the workers well. They can easily be tempted with money and all that.
Okay.
The government should consider paying their workers very well.
Thank you, Doctor. Okay, Prof, as we round off, what is your advice to the Tripartite Committee, including the government, the labor, and the private sector? In 1 minute.
Well, the advice is that they should come to terms that are feasible, terms that can be attainable. And on the part of the government, beyond this committee, even before it is the year for review, there should be good governance. Recall that in the 70s, minimum wage was 18 naira. In the 90s, it was 125. In 2000, it was 250. And people could afford more things, live a better life with those minimal amount as compared to 30,000 that we receive today. So government should be proactive. There should be good governance. There should be provision of the basic amenities. And once that is done, and more importantly, there must be checks and balances on the rate of inflation in Nigeria. Once that is done, there will be a better Nigeria at the end of the day.
There must be checks, correct checks and balances on the inflation rate. And what if that is done, there will be a better Nigeria. And Dr. Akintunde also said that a proper social intervention program should be designed devoid of corruption, and that there should be an improved standard of living for workers. And with those measures, we have come to the end of today's edition of the program. Dr. Akintunde Ogunsola is an economic analyst here in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. Doctor, I want to thank you for coming on today's edition of the program.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure. Looking forward to another wonderful program.
Yes, definitely. After the Workers' Day, you are going to come on the program again. We are going to make analysis of what is the aftermath of the Workers' Day by the grace of God. And Professor Akoji Ocheja is the head of the Department of Criminology and Security Studies of the National Open University of Nigeria, NOUN, here in the Federal Capital Territory. Prof, we want to thank you so much for finding time to honor an invitation on today's edition.
It's my pleasure always.
And to those of us that are out there, our esteemed audience, we want to thank you for branching off today's edition of the program. We always keep to our promises to educate you, to inform you, and also to increase your horizon about the business activities in Nigeria. I am Ile Imeje saying, happy Workers' Day ahead.